New York is in crisis. Help New York. And then pick up, decamp, and then go to the next place as this rolls across the country.
The peak hasn't yet hit, and New York's governor is warning the state could run out of ventilators in days. Cuomo has ordered the machines to be redistributed to overwhelmed hospitals. With many overcrowded, this convention center in Manhattan has now been turned into a makeshift hospital. Funeral homes and crematoriums in the country's most populous city are also struggling to cope.
9/11 was bad, it really was bad, but it wasn't like this. And even with the AIDS epidemic in the 80s, a lot of the funeral directors that were around back then and have dealt with value that's even comparable to what we're getting now.
Death in isolation. For victims and their families, there are no last words, no goodbyes. Only pictures of their loved ones from those on the front lines. Meanwhile, U.S. officials have done a U-turn on their face mask guidelines after initially stating they aren't necessary for the general public. The Center for Disease Control is now recommending face coverings such as bandanas and homemade masks, though the president has stressed they are not mandatory.
Well, I just don't want to wear one myself. It's a recommendation. They recommend it. I'm feeling good. I just don't want to be doing, I don't know, somehow sitting in the Oval Office behind that beautiful Resolute desk, the great Resolute desk. I think wearing a face mask as I greet presidents, prime ministers, dictators, kings, queens, I don't know, somehow I don't see it for myself.
The mixed messages have left many in the U.S. confused and frustrated.
More than 1 million people around the world now have confirmed coronavirus infections, and over 55,000 have died as we look now at the very latest developments. The International Monetary Fund says the pandemic has brought the global economy to a standstill. It says the world will see a recession that will be far worse than the global financial crisis a decade ago. A top British epidemiologist says the UK could relax its lockdown measures in a matter of weeks. That's providing the spread of coronavirus slows and the rate of testing increases. And South Korea has denied entry to 8 foreigners who refused to submit to quarantine measures. All overseas arrivals, including South Korean nationals, are required to self-isolate for 14 days. Now, Berlin's city government has accused the U.S. of an act of modern-day piracy after a shipment of 200,000 protective face masks was hijacked on its way from China to Germany. The masks had been ordered by Berlin's police force from an American manufacturer producing in China. But according to Berlin authorities, they were confiscated in Bangkok and diverted to the U.S. As the coronavirus pandemic worsens, demand for crucial medical supplies such as masks and respirators has surged worldwide, leading to unprecedented buying practices and countries outbidding each other. Berlin's Interior Minister Andreas Geisel urged the German government to remind Washington to comply with international rules, saying, "This is not how you deal with transatlantic partners. Even in times of global crisis, there should be no Wild West methods." The U.S. has denied the accusations. I'm joined now by our chief political editor, Michaela Kufner. So, Michaela, the gist of the story again is Berlin authorities are accusing the U.S. of stealing masks destined for Germany. Do you have more details on that?
Well, what is being reported as having happened is that a shipment of these special masks, particularly so important for medical staff, was actually transferred at the Bangkok airport in Thailand. And this was manufactured by 3M. It's an American company, but they produce these masks in China. And there, as we've learned, American officials simply confiscated 200,000 masks. A part of the shipment went ahead to Germany, and that is where we are. This is particularly embarrassing for German officials who just a couple of days ago lost, in quotation marks, some 6 million masks in Kenya at an airport, a shipment that simply didn't go through, which appears to have been redirected by illegal means.
Interesting. In the face of such aggressive purchasing practices, is Germany managing to secure enough protective equipment for its key workers, especially with the loss that you just mentioned?
Well, I can't give you the exact numbers because I don't think the German government has that, but there has been a recognition here that the official ways simply aren't working, that private companies are much better at actually tapping into regional networks now. And that's also why the likes of Volkswagen have now pooled their resources, and another logistics company as well, to help the government out, which has been simply unable to purchase enough masks. I doubt that any government will be able to get enough in total terms, but it's quite clear that the German way of doing things simply isn't a match for the clear America First strategy there, which doesn't seem to shy away from not going down any official route whatsoever.
You know, it strikes me that we've all been talking about solidarity these days, but with so-called allies pointing fingers, is this a sign of a more sort of fractious, self-serving world, at least until this crisis is over?
Well, I don't think I would want to get that philosophical. I wonder whether we are seeing more clearly what the actual reality is than before in such a moment of crisis. Here, the European Union has its own struggles to find a way of dealing with this. There's a very heated debate about financial solidarity. Euro bonds, or so-called Corona bonds, are unlikely to actually go ahead. We'll learn that next week. But simply damage has been done, particularly to transatlantic relations. Also, after Donald Trump very early on in this crisis described this as a European disease, now he tries to frame it as a Chinese one. And we must not forget that we are really in a competition here of whether democratic, free democracies can actually deliver to their own people. And at the same time, we see highly symbolic shipments of medical personnel, but also such masks to European states, particularly also Italy. So this is very much a battle for hearts and minds, as it is a tough fight for those desperately needed resources at the moment.
Michaela Kufner, thanks so much for that.